So, welcome everyone to our third episode of our B2B Masterclass. I'm your host, Scott Dennis, and today I'm joined by Andrea and Emilio. They are content strategists at Blacfox. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves in a bit, but just want to set the floor for everyone. If you have any questions, please use the poll Q&A feature at the top of your screen. And then throughout the webinar, we will try our best to answer it or at the end of the webinar. And I hope you guys enjoy. As you know, I think Emilia and Andre will do a bit of a recap of episode 2 as they go through the slides. And yeah, I'll let them introduce themselves. Over to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Scott. So yeah, my name's Andrea and I'm a senior content strategist here at Blacfox.
And I'm Emilio Damuns. I'm the team lead content strategist here at Blacfox. And essentially, we're just in charge of creating content for our clients and for ourselves a few times, like this webinar, for instance. But yeah, I guess that's it. Scott, can we jump in?
Yeah, you guys can kick off.
Okay, cool. So, welcome everyone. Let's get into this. Just so that everybody has an understanding of what the previous episodes were, our first episode, dealt with the research behind our content and what we do, whereas the second episode dealt with the journey that our content takes and the journey we take our customer through. We will touch on these aspects later down the line, but Scott will happily provide webinar recordings to those that want it, that goes into far more detail on these previous episodes. But okay, our webinar today is of course focused on content creation. And I think it's critical that we first establish what is content creation. I feel like when a lot of people see the term, they think of, YouTube, TikTok, very entertainment-driven content. So it's almost hard to relate it in a B2C sense and especially in a B2B sense. But within a B2B context, content creation is essentially the process of creating pieces that aim to help businesses or help professionals. And they do this by addressing their needs, solving their challenges, tackling their interests. It's all about your target audience here when it comes to creating content in B2B. And the ultimate purpose behind content creation, firstly, it's to build awareness. It's to put your brand out there. And secondly, it's to establish and further trust between your brand and other businesses. And you might ask yourself, okay, why do you need to build trust? Why do you need to garner trust? And honestly, in our experience, it's because businesses and the decision makers within businesses, they are very frugal with their money. It takes a lot to convince them to buy. So the more trust that you can gain, the better. It's going to be, when you eventually sell to them, that trust needs to allow them to look at you and be like, okay, I trust you. You're reliable. Let me inquire into whatever you're selling. Let me take on your consultation. Let me do your demo. Let me do the trial access. But that's the purpose. That's what content creation is. In terms of the forms it can take many forms. There's probably still some forms that we need to discover here ourselves. And hopefully Blacfox is the first to figure out something that nobody else does. But usually content can be broken down into two major categories, in my opinion. We have video and audio, which you can think of this webinar, for instance. This is a video and audio piece of content. You have podcasts, you have tutorial videos as well. And then you have more text content. This is ebooks, articles, social posts, and pamphlets, for instance. But content is only as good as the people who make it. And that's where content strategists come in. So At this point, I'm going to hand over to Andrea to kind of convince you guys, why content strategists are important, why we're valued, why we're loved, why my boss should pay me $1 million a day. Just sell us.
No pressure, but okay. So I think a big question that a lot of copywriters get asked these days is like, with AI, is your job still really relevant? Like, what are you actually doing? And I think that's where like a natural shift has happened, especially within Blacfox. I mean, we both started as copywriters and quickly had to, change into content strategists. Is exactly that. You can't just be a copywriter anymore. Like, you really need to strategize about what you're putting out there. Don't get me wrong, writing is still like a major part of our job. Obviously, it's just our scope is a lot broader. So I think a major part of our role is just figuring out your audience. Like, truly, everything you do needs to be guided by your audience. Like, that entails a lot of researching, a lot of going back and forth about what they truly want, who they are, what drives them, and what challenges they face. So I think, yeah, it's more about like taking what you know. We'll get to in our research docs that we use, but taking what you know, what your data tells you, and strategizing how your content sort of fits into the larger goals of a campaign. So I think it's really nuanced work. It's not just writing anymore. So I mean, we all know it's never been easier to produce content now with AI. I'm not saying it's good at all, actually, but factually, you can produce a lot of content very quickly. So I think where you now kind of need to be skilled is in making sure that what you actually decide to put out there resonates with your audience. And I think that's where most of our time goes. For me, I know personally, I constantly ask myself, okay, I'm researching this. Is my target market really going to care about this? As I'm writing, is my target market really going to care about this? Like, what value am I adding truly to them? So I think, yeah, that's where we come in, bringing that human element, that logical thinking, and just the strategy to the writing process, which I think makes our work like still super relevant and essential, essentially.
Yeah, so this is not necessarily about copywriters versus content strategists. So don't now go look at your copywriters and fire all of them. It's rather about upskilling them and sort of broadening their scope to be content strategists, essentially. Yeah. Yeah. But now that you guys understand what content creation is and you understand the role that content strategists play, let's sort of get into the process. And the first thing that we need to establish when it comes to the entire process of content creation is the foundation, which is the research. And I'm going to tell you now, if you do content creation without doing research, it's a huge gamble. I can speak from experience. There have been times when I created content without really understanding our audience. And this was very early on in my career, by the way. There's been a few times where I've created content without understanding our audience and went through the approval process. And my approver, whoever that may have been at the time, would look at me and be like, what's going on? Why are we writing this for this audience? And it's just a mess. Like, listen, it might pay off, but we highly advise against it. But in Blacfox, we have a very comprehensive research document that we use. We call it the PMF. We do it for almost all of our campaigns. And the major, we go into more detail in episode 1 on the PMF, if I'm not mistaken. But
just tell the people what a PMF stands for.
Oh, sorry. It's a positioning messaging framework. But to simplify what the PMF is and what it provides us, it provides us primarily with our target audience. So this will include their role, it will include their company size, their industry. Sometimes it includes their likes and dislikes and, their family history. It's like sometimes goes into unnecessary depth, but it all works out in the end. And then another thing that it provides to us, it's the pain points of that role. So what challenges are they facing within their businesses and with regard to their solution? And then, of course, it also gives us the product or solution or service that we're going to sell in the end. Because when you're creating content, you need to know all of these points. Research is very imperative. It's the foundation, and you can't build content without the foundation. So this is essentially the pre-writing stage. And once we have this document, it usually comes from our research department. That's when we go into the content creation. And our journey of content creation looks like this. It's a funnel in a sense. Whenever somebody says funnel, I always think about the marketing funnel here. But it's top of level content, middle of level content, and bottom of level content. And we're going to explain this a bit more when we go into the specifics of each piece. But you can essentially just see this as the roadmap that your content needs to take along with your audience. Top of funnel is the first piece they'll engage with. Middle of funnel, which is MOFU, will be the second or third piece they engage with. And then bottom of funnel, that's usually going to be your product or your solution. That's at the very, very, very end. But yes.
Just before you go on, I just want to say, as Amelia said, like we'll go into depth about each of these ones, but I think just understanding these stages, like while you're writing, is super important to ensure like your content aligns. And I think that's the main goal of this webinar, even, is just, making sure you meet your audience where they are, so if you just bombard them with bofu at the top of the funnel, it's not going to work. So I think for us, this is like a big guiding factor to creating our content. Yeah,
definitely. Going to the next slide here. So a PMF example. Okay, just so you know, people, this is not a real PMF. If we gave you a real PMF, you would probably leave the webinar. So this is a very, very simplified version. And this, we just want to give you this because we want to use this PMF as the basis for our next few slides. This is the example that we're going to use. So as you can see here, we have a product called ManuLink ERP. And for those of you that don't know what an ERP is, it's just a software that manages all your key business processes on one system, in one platform, which just brings everything together. But like, as you can see there, we have the product, and then we have our target persona, which is business owners, C-suite, sorry. And the size of the company is 50 to 200 employees. They're South African, and they're in the manufacturing industry. And then we have the pain points there. High operational cost, disparate business processes, and there's a lot of errors in the manual processes that their business has. So that is just a quick, easy way of, explaining the PMF. You want to say anything on this or no? All good? Okay. So now that we have the PMF here, we're going to move.
Which, sorry, is for fake clients. Let's just
yes, it is for fake clients. ManuLink is not a real client. Let's get into the content creation aspect. So the first stage of content creation, TOFU, or in other words, awareness content. This is the first piece of content that your audience will interact with. If you ever scroll maybe on LinkedIn or Facebook and you see like an ad that provides a free guide on, why you should use AI for your analytics, for your business analytics, that is TOFU content essentially. It's very topical in nature. It's usually not about the product. And the reason why it's never about the product is because nobody wants to download a glorified product description document. I personally wouldn't do that. But the main goal of the TOFU content section, is to spread awareness, it's to establish your brand, and it's to gather traffic. It's to bring in traffic. So at Blacfox, this is how you bring people into the funnel. So this once they download or interact or engage with your TOEFL content, they are officially in the funnel. And like I said, it's very topical content. But the major issue that we face as content strategists when it comes to TOEFL content is creating the topic. It's finding the topic that works. And how do we go about doing this? Now, at Blacfox, we use a triangle method, as you can see from this image. And don't go up to anybody, like if you ever meet a Blacfox employee and ask them, oh, what, can you explain the triangle method to me? Trust me, they're not going to know what you're talking about. I sort of coined this term myself a while back. It's just something that I realized about us. But the triangle method essentially takes in 3 variables from research. It takes in the target persona, it takes in the pain point, and it takes in the end solution, the product or service that you're going to sell at the end. And you bring all these 3 things together and you will find a topic. You will find a topic, people. And you might be asking yourself now, but isn't target and pain point the same thing? And why are you speaking about the solution when you just told us, oh, your TOEFL content shouldn't be about the solution? I'm going to explain why. So the target aspect of the triangle, this is mostly to inform you on the form or the style of communication your content needs to take. To make it a bit practical, an IT person is not going to read the same thing, or is not going to want to read about the same thing as opposed to a general manager. So let's say you're selling security software, just for example. Or let's say your topic is about security software and the importance thereof. The IT person is going to want a more comprehensive, technical, jargon-heavy document, whereas the general manager, he might want a content piece that's more listicle in nature. It's quick to read, it's quick to download, it's quick to digest, and he can use it whenever he needs to. That is the importance of your target. It's the language, it's the style of your content. And then when we move to the pain point section, this is what your topic aims to solve. This is when we go back to the pain points. Is your target audience struggling with admin? Then create a topic that addresses an admin issue. Is your target audience struggling with cybersecurity? Then I have a topical content piece that addresses cybersecurity challenges. And then moving on to the solution aspect of the triangle. Now, this does not mean that you need to mention the solution in your TOEFL content. It does not mean that at all. What it means is that your content should not stray far from the solution. If you're going to sell cybersecurity software, if you're going to sell an ERP, then you shouldn't be speaking about, your topic shouldn't be about managing employee relationships, just to give an example. Because, I'm going to give another example here. Let's say I'm complaining about my shower leaking. And somebody comes up to me and he gives me tips to fix my shower. And I use the tips. And then, I still need a proper solution because it's still giving problems. He comes to me again, gives me some more tips. It still doesn't necessarily solve my problem, but it helps. And then he comes to me the 3rd time and says like, hey, I'm a mechanic. I can fix your car. I'm going to be like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, my car is fine. I need my shower fixed. And the same logic essentially applies here when I talk about the solution aspect. So just to make this a lot more practical, if we go back to our PMF example, we see that our product is an ERP. We see that our target persona is a business owner. And we see various pain points. Let's choose one. We'll go with errors in manual processes. And then if we go back to the triangle, okay, I know my target is a busy business owner. We're going to have to create a listicle type of content piece. His pain point is manual errors in his processes. We need to create a topic that addresses that. And the solution is ERP. So in a way, the ERP should also solve the pain point. And here we have a few, topic ideas. At the bottom, 5 simple ways to reduce human errors in your production line. Simple, easy, addresses the pain point, and still stays within the realm of ERP. And then we have essential steps to reduce production bottlenecks. That can be a checklist. And then you have what you need for the perfect production line. That can be an educational video where you maybe have an expert speak on like how to create the optimal production line that has no errors. And that's essentially how you go about creating tofu content. Whether you want it to be gated or free is completely up to you. We take a gated approach by asking the audience to provide us with their email addresses and contact numbers and names so that we can put them into the funnel and that we can engage them later. So once they interact with that, what happens to them? Well, we need to keep them warm. And that's where Mofu nurture content comes in. And Andrea, I feel like you can take it here. My throat is
Cool. So I think for Mofu content, there isn't like a major difference between Tofu and Mofu in the instance that, with Mofu content, your audience has already interacted, they're familiar with your brand. So this is more just like a nurturing step. They're already in your funnel. Now, at this stage, you just want to build some trust in your name, and your brand. So I think this is more about like deepening that relationship by continuously providing content that, adds more value to their pain points and answers their specific questions. So let's say, for example, a tofu, like an ebook, can also be a form of Mofu content. So
it will just be the second touch point.
Yes, exactly. So you still, use your triangle method, you write the ebook. It still needs to align with the overall like messaging of the PMF, but it might just be, something slightly still related to manufacturing, but just a different element of their pain point. So this way, they're keeping, you're keeping them warm. So they downloaded your first ebook. They're like, oh, wow, this is super relevant. Here you send them your next one. They're like, okay, this, this brand kind of like understands what I'm going through. I feel you need to make them sort of feel uncomfortable. Like, whoa, how do they know exactly what I'm, struggling with? You need to get to that point. So I think, just a major thing for Mofus is just continuing to add value and just sending stuff to your audience that they can benefit. You don't want to suddenly come in with a Bofu pitch and speak about the product. This is still, just keeping that relationship going. So I think, like I said, an ebook is an example of Mofu content. I think a big one that we also do are webinars.
Yeah.
So this is a bit more like thought leadership, but also, aligning with that overall theme of building trust. So for a webinar, you can still, the topic can be something like, building a resilient manufacturing process where you get an industry leader and, they share some insights about, for example, their manufacturing business. And once again, you're not exactly selling the solution at all here, but you're giving the audience something worthwhile, something to keep them in your funnel. So like I said, I think this stage is a lot about, just reinforcing that trust. Yeah.
Totally. Definitely about furthering the trust. And this doesn't, Mofu content is not exclusive to a second touch point. If you still feel like you need to make your prospective lead a bit warmer, you can always give them a third piece of content for free.
Yeah.
It really does work. But yes, once you feel that they are, they heated up, you ready to go for them, that's when you hit them with the most critical piece of content, which is Bofu content, the solution piece. And
so this is essentially where things get serious. I think, like Amelia said, this is now where all your hard work kind of has to pay off, like all the bets you placed on your pain points, on your target market. This is kind of where, it needs to show results. Your audience is at this stage, evaluating their options. And I think our job with the vocal content then is, just giving them that final push, like to choose your product. So I think, yeah, for example, let's say someone's been, they downloaded the first ebook that Amelia wrote. They were like, okay, this is good. They downloaded the Mofu content, which I wrote, and they were like, this is amazing. Now we feel like, okay, this is the right time. We can send them some Bofu content. So this can be, for example, a Bofu email. You send them an email that kind of introduces the solution, and you kind of hammer on that pain point that you've been,
addressing
the whole time. Yeah. And now you go straight forward. You say, we know you're struggling with, your processes. We've got a solution that can help you. But I think a major thing where people kind of mess up a bit here is you make it too salesy. Like, I know this is where you're pushing the product, but you still don't want to force that person. It still kind of needs to be, that trust thing. Like, they need to feel like, okay, you're trying to help us. Like, we built this relationship. We're trusting that, you're going to suggest something to us that's actually going to help. So you write your email, you say, we've got something that can help. Your CTA is click here to find out more. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I kind of want to say something here.
Yeah.
Actually says the CTA is click here to learn more. It's not necessarily salesy. And I think that's where some sort of confusion can come up, because you would think like, okay, the Bofu content is going to do the selling for me. And that's not entirely true. It's more so that they engage with your solution. You're going to create whatever content, Bofu content piece it is, whether it be an email, whether it be an ad, whether it be a landing page, whether it be a brochure. The point of this content piece is for them to inquire further. It's not for them to make a strict buying decision. It's not necessarily a take my money situation.
Yeah, you're not going in for the kill, essentially.
Yeah, you're not going in for the kill.
Yeah.
They need to see, okay, this is what the product is, and then they're going to inquire further. They're going to maybe give you a call and be like, listen, this product, the service, it sounds interesting. Can you tell me more about it? And then, of course, it'll be up to whoever's selling for your company to really go in depth. Yeah. That's what Bofu content is. It's just the official step into the door of sales.
Yeah. So continuing with my example, okay, they clicked on the email. We now take them to a Bofu landing page. So this is now finally, after however long, you can speak about the product. So here, how we essentially structure it is you do that last, like you hammer in the pain point for the last time. You're like, okay, we know you're struggling with this. We can help you. And here you can speak about the product features, the benefits, how it's going to help, the potential lead. So I think here is kind of your last chance to address like any lingering doubts they might have had, and give them the confidence that they need to say, okay, I want to learn more about this. I think personally, I think on paper this might seem super straightforward and like the easiest asset to write for, especially after that triangle method. But I think the Bofu content is arguably the most challenging to get right. Not only are you like placing all of your bets on the pain points that you've chosen, and essentially built an entire funnel around, you need to still write in a way, like we said, that doesn't sound like you're kind of cornering this person and saying like, okay, you went through this journey with us, you need to buy now. Like, it still needs to feel very natural. I think that's a like delicate balancing act. Like, yes, creating intrigue about the product, but also making them feel like it's still their decision. So yeah, it is a tough one.
And in B2B especially, like just taking the example, for instance, we're not selling Ferraris, we're not selling iPhones, we're not selling PlayStations, we're selling ERP, we're selling cloud, we're selling payroll. It's not the most interesting product, so you need to make it as understandable as possible. You need to simplify it. You need to even make it a bit fairly entertaining in some way or form. And that's the real challenge when it comes to Bofu content. It's making that product understandable, easy, and entertaining.
And I think also if we're linking it back to like, our copywriters, content strategists still relevant, I think here is where that hard work comes in, like Amelia said. Now you need to, for lack of a better word, so intimately know your target market by this point. Like, yeah, this both needs to be so personalized to them at this point. And that's where like a lot of the strategizing comes in. So yeah, and then I think if we go to like the CTA, so you have your narrative, you have your product offerings and benefits, and then that last push, you've got the CTA, which essentially call to action can be a few things. Like we said, you don't need to tell them, okay, buy now.
Yeah.
This can, I mean, it depends on the campaign that you're running. This can be offering them a product demo, a trial access to something, or just like even a consultation. Like we said, you don't need to corner them and now they make a decision that they're stuck with forever. Like it's just, you just want them to take that desired action.
Like I said, businesses are very frugal. They they don't want to commit to buying anything haphazardly.
Yeah, especially if it's an expensive product.
Yeah.
So
that's essentially kind of how you go about creating each piece of content, or at least that's the conceptual explanation of it. I think in the next slide we're going to touch on
just before you go.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I just want to also mention that if you're out the funnel, you also need to be super aware of the narrative. I know like in the tofu you're not selling and in the mofu you're not selling, but there still needs to be like a logical narrative that's being pulled through that makes sense to the reader. If at any point something feels disjointed, like your audience is going to pick up on that. So you really, really need to pick your pain point, pick your narrative, and execute that kind of perfectly. Yeah.
And like I said, or like Andrea said earlier, content strategists and humans are the only people that can really do this. And that sort of brings us into our next slide, which is AI and writing. Now, I'm gonna, just to be real, you need to use AI, people. In B2B content creation, you need to use AI. It is a fast-paced environment. And if you take a novel approach to creating content, like you're writing, a fantasy book or a thriller piece of fiction, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You're going to have to use AI. But, you need to see AI as a tool. It is simply that. It is not there to replace you. It's not there to do your job for you. It's something that's there to supplement your skills. And by that logic, like, you need to understand, what is this tool good at? And AI, when it comes to at least writing and content creation, it's really good at certain things. Like it says there on the slide, it's good for forming a skeleton. And by this, we mean it's good for forming the base of your content. If you're writing an ebook, it's good to use AI to form an outline, to form your first crappy draft that you wouldn't dare put through the approval process. It's good to in terms of a webinar, it's good to create maybe like a rough webinar flow. Even in design, even when it comes to designers, our designers, they use AI to generate certain images for themselves, and then they edit the hell out of it later down the line. So AI is really good at forming a base for your content. And then one thing that I think is very underrated about AI is it's exceptional at brainstorming with you. You don't need another person sometimes. So this is good for anybody who's doing solo content creation. Open ChatGPT up, use that voice prompt feature where it communicates back to you, like it actually speaks back to you, and bounce ideas off each other. You will find, or you can do it in a text manner as well, but you will find that when it creates ideas, yes, it might be sometimes a bit generic, but you can tell it to go deeper. You can find golden nuggets within the things it says. You maybe see something and you wonder like, okay, let me take this and let me just Google more about it. Let me do some more research about it. And you might find topics within that topic. You might take two separate topics and combine them together. It's exceptional at brainstorming, and it's something that I think every content strategist should do. Highly recommend it.
If I can just jump in here, I think something that I've also recognized, like especially when you're like Mia said, bouncing ideas off. I think after that, when you go back and like look at the chat and everything, a lot of the times it's still you that kind of came up with that great idea. I think you just needed like to bounce that idea off. So once again, it's not AI doing the work, it's really just a tool. Like at the end of the day, you decided like, oh, this is actually something good. You essentially came up with that going back and forth, back and forth. It's just like something to bounce off of.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And another thing AI is very good at, it's very good at quick fixes. Grammar, punctuation, even if you don't like the way a sentence sounds, maybe it's reading too long, maybe it's reading awkwardly, you can even pop that into ChatGPT and say like, listen, just fix this for me. I'm a bit lazy, and it will do its thing. So you need to know what this tool is good at. And once again, you need to know what you're good at. And again, we'll touch on like the importance of human creative. Maybe, yeah, I'm going to touch on the important. Oh, it's coming up. Yeah, where we touch upon the importance of your human touch when it comes to AI. And then another thing that I think we should warn content creators of content strategists about, or whoever creates content within your company, you need to know that AI hallucinations are real. And by this, we mean that AI can straight up just lie to you sometimes, and it won't even realize it. And there have been plenty of real life incidents where AI hallucinations has caused problems. I will always recall that the biggest one is this one about a lawyer who kind of used ChatGPT to inform his case or build his case, and then it was discovered later that the cases that was cited weren't real at all. And yeah, this was a major mess up. And you know, because of that, you need to realize that you need to fact check AI a lot. And there's various ways that you can do this. You can send whatever content piece you have to a professional. Maybe they can check it out. We've done this a couple of times. You can fact check You can fact check it yourself. This is the long way of doing it. Or in other instances, not really recommended, you can have other AI fact check your your content. Yeah, but that can also lead to some problems. So not recommended, but if you truly strapped for time, but still, rather just do the research yourself and fact check. But yeah.
So yeah, so I can just also jump in here. I think you did, you added the stat there where it said like 2 out of 3 businesses use AI. So it really isn't something absurd using AI. And I think we'll touch on our tips now, but your audience is smart. Like everyone using AI as, you know, just generating the content and putting it out just because they're like, oh, we have content, we're pushing it out. Your audience is going to pick up on AI written stuff so quickly. Like there are so many giveaways. And like I said, they can feel that it's not genuine, that you just put it out there to put it out there. So saying that we use AI, it's a lot more goes into that than just I essentially dare anyone to write like a 2-sentence paragraph and say, write me an ebook about cloud software that law firms need to adopt.
2-sentence prompt, you mean?
Yeah.
2-sentence prompt, yeah.
2-sentence prompt, put that into AI and see what that gives you versus like what we go through on a daily basis to ensure, you know, that we put out good, relevant content.
Yeah. And I can tell you that because AI is getting more and more common, whenever I read content pieces where I see like, oh, in the ever-evolving world or navigating the business landscape, it immediately throws you off and you immediately look at it at like
reading actually.
Yeah, you stop reading like, oh, you guys didn't put effort into this. Why should I care? Yeah, so use AI, but use it wisely. And yeah, general writing rules. So this is a very content or copywriter aspect of our job. When we're creating content. So whether you're writing emails, whether you're writing landing pages, social posts, brochures, whatever, these are some of the most crucial rules that you need to adhere to.
Like this is what we kind of live by and check ourselves with when we're writing copy, when we're editing it and everything.
Yeah, you want to go one by one? Take an alternate?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. The first one is avoid shotgun marketing. And by this, we mean you're not going to offer multiple things at once. That's just going to confuse your audience. Like, yeah, maybe this works in a B2C manner where there's a bunch of products on like a store pamphlet, but it doesn't work in a B2B context. And to give you an example, you don't want to sell Microsoft Office and an ERP and like Azure Cloud on one piece of content.
And try to like address all the different roles on one piece of content.
Yeah, it's just not going to work. So if you narrow the focus down into one CTA, it puts blinders on the reader so that they know what to focus on, and it directs them to the thing that you actually want them to click. So simplicity is best here. And that leads into the next point, actually, now that I think about it, which is one clear CTA.
Yeah, so I think they're like shotgun marketing, like you said, you can't address everyone at one time. And then the one CTA also can't overwhelm the reader with actions. You can't tell them, okay, download our guide, but also at the same time sign up for this. And then somewhere while you're at it, do this and this and this. You're going to lose them. You're going to overwhelm them. You're not going to get anything out of it. So you're actually just wasting your time. Pick one thing, stick to it, keep it simple.
Yeah. And then third rule, understand your topic before writing. I think this is sort of self-explanatory, but trust me, you don't want to be in a position where you write content and you put it out there, and then all of a sudden you see in your LinkedIn comments like, this doesn't make sense at all. Who wrote this? Fire that person immediately. Like you really don't want that. So like I said, it's critical that you understand your topic before you write it. If you're using AI to brainstorm ideas, do research on that topic first before you continue further with your drafts.
I think also this one by one isn't working. Just to add on to this, I think for me, so for example, I write a lot about cloud stuff. So imagine you trying to sell something to a highly educated and skilled audience, and you don't know what you're speaking about. Those people are going to laugh at you. It's just not going to work. So I've taken like so much time when you just want to get that piece done, but that research is essential. And don't just like try and understand, because I've also made this mistake before. You understand the topic on paper, you understand the solution on paper, but trying to explain it to someone else, then you're like, oh wait, actually don't know. So just take your time, like truly understand what you're writing about. And I think just to skip also, that ties in with believing in what you write. And I think that's been a major tip for like me, for example. If you understand what you're writing about, you're essentially going to find it interesting. And if you find it interesting, you're going to write it in a way that your audience is going to find it interesting. So everything is kind of like interlinked. Yeah.
And you also want to touch on grade. Come on, because I feel like you would better at this than me personally.
So essentially, like we said, this is very where do we use this a lot? For example, ads, for example, email. This is essentially where, you want to impinge on the reader. You want to have that element of like mystery. So you're telling them, okay, you're struggling with this. We have a solution, but you're not telling them, okay, this is the ebook. It has 20 pages. Chapter 1 discusses this. You're not giving everything away. I think we touch on it buy tips, but you're selling the next
step, yeah.
next step. Yeah. So you kind of want your audience to read that and be like, okay, wait, I kind of need to know more. And that's, where they click through. Yeah.
All right. And then we have ensure consistency. This is a very simple one. It's just to make sure that your formatting and the flow of your content is logical. You don't want your audience to go through ebook and then all of a sudden you have paragraphs that doesn't relate to the previous one or doesn't relate to the next one. It just throws you off. And this relates to the formatting and design as well. But yeah, and of course, that goes also logical flow of content and format, and then eliminate fluff and word clutter. This is something that we had to learn very early on, because if you write anything like from the heart, you will see that there's a lot of unnecessary things that you say. There's sentences that can be cut shorter. There's sentences that can be removed because they're repetitive, considering the prior sentences. There's maybe even paragraphs that you can remove. And you'll usually find that fluff and word clutter usually comes from adjectives. So like when you say supercharge a platform, you don't necessarily need to say that, especially if you're using adjectives all over the place. I use it sparingly. Sometimes it's good to like, just spice up your content a bit. But yeah, it's highly recommended that you eliminate fluff and word clutter. There's plenty of books as well that you can find in stores that kind of speak on this, writing books. And this applies to a bunch of non-fiction writing, essentially.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain just haywire now there. Avoid AI cliches.
So yeah, I think this is where, that classic ChatGPT stuff, or like our manager said, algorithmic sludge. That's like evolving. That's where
navigating
the evolving landscape, or just stuff like that. No, nobody's gonna want to read that. It's unnecessary. I think it classifies as word clutter, and in my opinion, it's also lazy writing. Like, if you can't excite the reader with your narrative, it's kind of a cheap trick to rely on these words to try and get them excited, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
And I think that also ties in nicely to colloquial language and make it personal. You're gonna, the second draft, the third draft, the fourth draft, and the final draft, you'll find that you're going to add a bit more of your personality and your style and the business voice to the copy. And this is why it's essential to really have content strategists and, to have like at least a good amount of them, because you'll find that everybody brings something to the table and it just makes your copy sound more human. For instance, Andrea, she's very good at simplifying very technical pieces. So if you had to give her, if you had to tell her, okay, write about cloud software, write about cybersecurity software, she will find a way to really simplify it and make it resonate with the audience. And then, like, I would say my strong suit is that, like, I'm more creative in the types of content and the types of topics that I approach. The way I do social posts, for instance, like, I really try to be as creative and maybe fun as possible. I usually always try to push the envelope so that when it goes through the approval process, my approver, whoever that may be, might be like, okay, wait, this is too much, Emilio, rather dial it back again. I prefer that criticism over, nah, this is too boring. Please just don't be like this. So that's why it's important to really add the human element to your work. So that's just general writing rules that I think you'll find everywhere, and you'll find it in books, you'll find it on articles. But at Blacfox, we have our own personal rules. There's certain tips that we establish for ourselves, and we want to share that with you today as well.
Just super quickly, because I do see we're short on time.
But Blacfox tips. Luckily, we only have like 6 here. Yeah, that's how I go. Cross-checking approvals and client feedback. At Blacfox, we have a very, very strict approval process. Like it goes through
multiple checkpoints.
From the person who writes or who creates the content to the person that needs to cross-check that content to make sure that it's grammatically correct, to make sure that it's understandable. And, they also kind of make sure like, are you meeting the target audience's needs? Are you addressing their challenges? And then like if the cross-checker is okay with it, then it will only go to our final step of approval.
Internal
approval. And that's the guy that gives the go-ahead, not for it to go to client necessarily, but he gives the go-ahead for it to go to the next stage in the production process. So our content will then go to design, and from design it will go to our builders. And even at that point, your content is still subject to criticism. There have been people or there are people in this company, or designers and builders and non-writers, that will look at the copy sometimes and tell me to my face like, okay, this needs to be reworked. This needs to change. You need to maybe change the subject line of your email. You need to change your CTA. Sorry, that's more of a passive point, but yeah. And then from there, if that's okay, we'll go to client, and if client gives feedback, you of course implement that feedback as well.
Yeah.
But that's it on the cross-checking tip.
I think we're just going to streamline through them. So, like Amelia said, for shorter pieces, try not using AI. That's where the creativity comes in. Try to write, stuff
from the heart sometimes. It's more about keeping your writing to make sure that you don't rely on AI too much.
And you still creativity.
And it still upgrades your own writing so that you can just create better content in the future. And then be very action oriented in your copy. This means use active verbs. Tell the audience sometimes what to do. It really helps. Use voice prompting. This is when you speak to your ChatGPT, it just makes things faster. Tell AI what it needs to be. Very easy and quick and simple tip. But before you write content, just tell AI, listen, you're a content strategist, or tell it you're a copywriter. If you're doing research, tell the AI you're a researcher, and then you give it your prompts. And then final bit of advice, your content, whatever that may be, it has a purpose. And the purpose is to sell the next step. If you, for instance, if you want an email to take them to a landing page, your email's purpose is to get them to the landing page.
The email is essentially selling the landing page.
Yes.
If you say it like that. Your ad is selling the ebook.
Yeah. So that's just us running through the Blacfox tips. Scott, I see you on screen.
Guys, we do have 4 minutes left of the session. We can run, say, 2 minutes over, but I just want us to be wary of time. There is also a question that Sean asked, so I don't know if you want to cover anything else in your slides.
I think we touched the most important
we touched on most, but I just want to kind of give the audience just some tools that they can use that we advise using. So these are some things that you can use to kind of supplement your content creation. There's Hemingway Editor, which is just a very, very aggressive criticizer of content that will kind of inform how sentences should be, punctuation, stuff like that. Of course, you have ChatGPT, and we highly recommend the advanced models. The paid version works way better than the free one. There's Perplexity AI, which you use.
Just like essentially a research tool is very good.
Notebook LM is also a research tool where you get to upload a document. Like if you upload a 1,000-page document to Notebook LM, it will summarize that beautifully, and you can just pull from it. And then you have SEMrush and Blogify, which is really good for blogs.
I mean, I think we will share the slides, so the rest of the stuff we didn't go through, it's on the slides.
Okay.
So what's the question?
Yeah, so Sean Puthitter asked, his question is, how do you maintain the integrity of your content funnel in situations where all the content is available at the same time and not following a structured drip like in mailers? For example, if you are running a website and a wide range of tofu, mofu, and bofu content appears to a first visitor, how do you guide them to follow the content funnel? Is this even possible, or should we just focus on maximizing touch points?
It is possible. We usually refer to this as cross-pollination, but it is a very difficult and intensive process. And this is not usually up to the content strategist. We have a whole department that
Kind
does
of builds the journey.
Yeah, they builds the
from there,
journey,
yeah.
and they add tags to certain customers so that customers or that prospective leads, they won't see the same content, they won't receive the same content. So it is possible, very intense to do. The fact that we have a whole department just dedicated to that speaks to that.
I think it is possible. So let's just say, for example, okay, the first touch point your person has is with a bofu. It doesn't make sense anymore to send them all your tofus that you wrote about, that pain point of the bofu. But what you always can do is, I mean, as you saw in the PMF, we have 3 pain points. You already know, okay, so they are in the manufacturing business. What you can always do, to still engage with that person is you can send them a tofu of a different pain point that they might not even know they have yet. And in that way, it's kind of in the same realm, but it's not, it's not, I don't want to say useless. It's kind of just a different avenue that you can take. So it is possible.
Yeah. And I guess if someone ends up at your bofu, they already have that buyer's intent since they found it. So
Yeah.
you do get cases like that where it is inevitable. You do get, yeah. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. Thank you to Emilia and Andrea. I see it's 3 o'clock on the dot, so I think we can wrap up now. If you look in the chat, we will be launching a poll question. If you like the content that you saw, please have a look and answer the poll question. Once again, thank you all for joining our last webinar of this year. I hope each and every one of you have a great festive season, and we'll be seeing you next year.